One. Let's go, everybody! It's 2021. It's a new year, and it is another episode of the Ultimate Schmoedown Show. Okay, we don't want to get kicked off the internet, and we're here to discuss the teams match from Spectacular 5. Welcome. Be your host today, as always, Colin. Joining me are the boys, now back in the most dangerous city in America, Los Angeles. It's John Barr.
That's right. Yeah, I'm back. I know there was a lot of contention about which city was more dangerous, Los Angeles or Philadelphia. The answer, of course, remains Cleveland. But that said, I'm very glad to be back in Los Angeles with all of my super good recording equipment, like my brand new microphone. What's that? The microphone doesn't work. All right, well, regardless of that, I'm glad to be back here, recording on, I guess, a worse microphone than in Philadelphia. I might have to schedule another flight, but I'm glad to be here.
Well, you know, it's just a pleasure to hear you. Either way, we hear you. We love to. It doesn't matter the sound quality. Please, we can doctor this up in post. Bogz, welcome back, my co-host on We Have the High Ground, the best darn Star Wars show on the internet, where we just ranked the Star Wars movies 1 to 12. Go check that out. Bogz and I probably have the most civilized discussion over The Last Jedi between two people who have polar opposite opinions on the film. It was really fun.
Yeah, it was. Yep, love doing that show. Obviously, two big Star Wars fans. So yeah, go check that out on the Pop Culture Universe. But yeah, happy New Year, everyone. Good to be back. Obviously, we've got a big year, just in general, but of course, in the Schmoedown, big year for us as a show, big year for, everything we're doing on YouTube, etc., etc., and a big year for the teams and what's happening there in this match. And but yeah, pleasure to be here with you guys as usual. So yeah, let's get into it.
Yeah, and I mean, not to be the bearer of bad news, everyone, but this is probably the last teams match we're gonna get for a good long while, right? So let's enjoy this, because it's just, until they get back in studio, I think they've just decided, to no fault of their own, that the teams are best served for a studio setting. And it's unfortunate that we're gonna miss out on some of these teams. I'd be very interested to talk about how this would affect people drafting going into next season. I mean, it just seems like that was a big part of last year, was you either draft one person from a team and you split the team up, or you draft the entire team. And it seems to me like the only team that might get retained right now is Corruption, maybe SHAZAM. I mean, SHAZAM probably, the two teams we're going to talk about today, and the Odd Couple, of course. So those three, but then everything else is a discussion after that. You can probably have an open-ended discussion about Final Exam, as much as we love Lon and Paul. That's hard for, if they're not going to be booking teams matches for the first 3 or 4 months of the season, unless they find a way to get into the studio. This is going to be, it's going to be a whole different ball game. John, am I crazy, or is that, or managers going to start thinking that way?
I mean, it's interesting. I think, to a certain extent, a lot of the teams that have been formed, particularly this past year, have been folks kind of going like, all right, let me pick up a bunch of singles players, and then let me just start trying to shove these pieces together to see what fits. So I think in some regard, there is an element of people are probably just going to be drafting a bunch of singles players on top of the maybe 1 to 2 people they get for other divisions. And then they'll just kind of start trying to shove folks together. But at the same time, certainly what we saw last season is a lot of folks getting there like, oh, we know for a fact we're going to get X number of people on the squad. So let's make sure that we have 2 people that are both solid in teams and singles. Like with Corruption, for example, obviously Shannon chose to keep Mike and Chance together as opposed to rolling the dice and keeping Marisol. So, there's definitely room for some shakeups, which, I will say excites me. I thought that the Anarchy tournament, when the teams first got shook up. When the team orders all got goofed, it was really interesting to see what teams came out of that. One such team being the Odd Couple. So it will be interesting to see what comes out. But I mean, they called the next season War, Colin. So I think people are going to be drafting battalions.
Maybe a platoon swap coming for some of these teams as well. Be nice to see. Nice to see a switch up. The league. It's kind of interesting how much opportunity for change there is in this league as opposed to most other sports. It's not. There's usually maybe one or two additions, maybe like big shakeups. And also, Bogz, what's your reaction to the commission himself, Christian Harloff, coming out and saying we are expanding rosters to 12 competitors next season?
Yeah, good to hear. I mean, I think it's fair because obviously there's less teams now in general, right? Without the Drews playing. So yeah, one less team, so each one can draft a couple more. I think that kind of makes sense overall. But I really hope that they reverse this team's decision with not playing or not participating in the teams league or waiting until the studio thing, because some of the best matches have been in teams this year, and like the title match at Spectacular as well. So yeah, I'm just hoping somehow he just changes his mind, due to popular demand or players getting on his back or whatever. So yeah, let's go on strike until we get a teams match.
I always love to strike. Striking's fun. Well, speaking of striking,
strike first, strike hard.
No mercy.
Just a little bit messy, but anyway.
Yeah, we hope you are all enjoying Cobra Kai season 3 right? as well. Drops today on Netflix. If we could break into a Cobra Kai breakdown, we could, but I mean,
we'll save that for the Pop Culture Universe.
Pop Talk review will be dropping on Sunday. Folks, we got a match though. SHAZAM versus The Odd Couple. Unreal. The like one of my favorite things on the ESPN app is if you're watching like any sporting event, there's some form of a prediction of who's going to win. They have like statistically like what percentage chance does this team have to win based on what's happening. The Atlanta Falcons are notorious for being at 99% confirmed they're going to win and then they lose. So, some stuff like that. I feel like The Odd Couple was in that position in times today where there was like a 2% chance that they could win this match. It just felt like it, like everything that goes into one of these 5 rounders, because you gotta play consistently. You can drop off and there's opportunities to come back. You also just have to hope that your opponent's on their game. We start this match off though, John, where SHAZAM seems to just grab control of this game and is on a collision course with just to retain the belt. Like they just felt like Odd Couple had no chance here after round 1.
Yeah, I mean, it's always tough when a team's able to grasp control of the match fairly quickly up top. Especially it's a little bit harder to say that definitively when we're talking about teams, because obviously when we're talking about these round 1s, compared to 2 players in singles to 4 players in teams, then it's like, all right, there's a little bit more of a margin of error. But then especially because we're talking about a championship match, which is a whole 5 rounds as opposed to our traditional 3. So it's definitely one of those things where I was like, all right, this first round does not set the tone for exactly how this match is going to go. It's definitely way, way, way too early to call, but you still hate to see it. If you're an Odd Couple fan, and I know there are at least a couple out there, you probably weren't too pleased to see this. Both Andreyko and Snyder missed the Goodfellas question. And I mean, that's because they were going up against a couple Goodfellas themselves in Bibiani and Brendan Meyer. That said, after that question, Snyder also missed a question about the SpongeBob SquarePants movie. A question that he was very, very elegant and composed about not getting. And then Bibiani is the only player who got the perfect round because, oops, I made a goof. I forgot to mention that Brendan Meyer also missed a question. He missed the Eddie Murphy question. So he was kind of helped out by the fact that William, the Beast Bibiani, was able to get a perfect round and a bonus. But as you said, Colin, that set up a 3-round three round. Oh boy, that would have been crazy. If after the first round they got 3 rounds ahead. No. 3 points. That's how math works.
Sounds like
they're
tennis.
Only 3 points ahead of the Odd Couple, 16 to 13, Colin.
Yeah, and this is something that the Odd Couple isn't too fond of. They don't like to play from behind. No, I mean, obviously, no one likes to play from behind, right? Like but as a team, they do, like, and they do much better when they're ahead. Obviously, that speaks for itself. But it's a mentality thing, and this team has Jeff's cockiness is a form of drive for them. And you see that once he uses that second repeat on SpongeBob SquarePants, he's already seeming like the Jeff Snyder we talk about that takes himself out of the game. And he just seems to, that's the worst thing you want to see from a Jeff, if you're a Jeff Snyder fan out there. Like, it's not it's not ever what you want. And he doesn't have a good record of coming back in moments like this. He usually psychs himself out. Bogz, where were you after round one? I know, this match is just riddled with ups and downs, and especially feeling like they got off to, maybe they had a chance after Brendan missed that question, but to be down 3, not where you want to be.
Yeah, first of all, Jeff Schneider fan here. I'd just like to do that. But yeah, the first of all, a couple of shout outs. I want to shout out No Chronic for the promo. It was, I thought, really good. Lots of highlights in studio digital. Obviously, we've got 2, experienced teams here, so I thought that was really good. And also, Koi's internet. Like, how is it so good in like the promo section? Like, it's completely fine. Camera's great, good quality, internet's fine, audio's fine, and then as soon as it comes to a match, it's all over the shop. Like, it has different angles, it cuts out, his audio's messed up, like there's a delay, like there's like it's just funny. Like, his promo stuff's great, but the match is just awful. But yeah, that's funny. And shout out to Roxy as well, because this was her 3rd match in a row in Spectacular. So it was like the Roxy show at the start of the card thing, basically. So shout out to her. That ended her kind of run in Spectacular, which is she was featured in every match. That was great. But yeah, the first match, you just like you said, I mean, obviously they had the 16-13 lead. They did use 2 repeats, so I was a little bit worried for the Odd Couple. But like you said, it's a 5-round match. A lot could happen. I think all of their teams matches, the Odd Couple, have gone perfect in round 2. So I think that they were confident going into the next round. They weren't too down. Maybe another match they might have been, but going into a 5-round title match where they've got the experience, they've got the form. So I didn't feel that their heads dropped too low yet. So I didn't I knew the kind of maybe Roxy was saving her kind of call to action speech to later on in the match. So she didn't need to do it at that point after round 1. So she was saving that for later. Yeah.
Yeah, and John, he kind of spoiled what happens for the Odd Couple, at least in round 2. They go perfect, get all 12 points, spinning Oscars. Oh, didn't they respin?
Yeah,
so
they spun away from Oscars.
Away from Oscars, and then they go Ron Howard. So
right.
Going 12 for 12 is exactly what you want to see. Then the same thing, SHAZAM respins off of Coming of Age. I have written here in my notes that Colin says to respin. So, nice. Good call, Colin. Because they go Jim Henson. But, interestingly enough, John, maybe not everything's so happy down on Sesame Street. Sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I also agreed it was a smart call to spin away from Coming of Age. I've only just come of age myself. But yeah, once you get into a category like Jim Henson, where there's only so many possible movies, you start to get into some of those deep and complicated cuts, like with, say, A Muppet Christmas Carol. A movie where I feel like there were 3 or 4 questions that came up, I feel like, from this movie specifically. And by the way, hottest take of the year, 2020. Now that we're in 2021, I can safely say my take that the best Muppet movie is Muppet Treasure Island. But we'll save that discussion for another time. Odd Couple, if they weren't feeling cozy with a 12 out of 12 already, they're probably feeling a little bit cozier because SHAZAM only gets 10 out of a possible 12 points. And when it comes to that Muppet Christmas Carol factory question, it's multiple choice, so it's only a 1-point advantage, but Odd Couple takes that which means that they get 3 points over SHAZAM in that second round, which means that it is completely tied up coming out of round 2, Colin.
26-26. One of my favorite numbers as a kid is the channel was that was Nickelodeon on cable.
Sure.
So I knew that number well as a kid. And 51 was Cartoon Network. 26 and 51. Definitely not my bank pen. Don't think it. That's not it. I probably wouldn't have said it if it was. But yeah, you go over and hey, guess what, guys? Round 3, Jim Henson said, I'm coming back for round 3. So I mean, the odd couple seems to be. This would just be the morale boost that they need. They got stabbed with the little power juice, got shot back up. But one thing that I think needs to be said is that this wasn't really Jeff Snyder, probably his comfort zone. This is definitely the comfort zone of Mark Andreyko, and you can tell. So for Jeff to, I still think that there was some of that negative juju, voodoo, whatever, left over from round 1, because it just seemed like Mark came alive in this match. Like this is one of Mark Andreyko's finest performances. I feel like he really came alive and showed why he's just as big a reason why this team is successful as Jeff Snyder. It's not even before it's the pedigree of Snyder is the former champ, defended the belt 4 or 5 times, that carries weight, and Mark was having to put that weight, he was trying to build his own rep here. Bogz, do you think that the guy this is Mark Andreyko's not here to stay? He's peaked, well, not peaking, but now he's in his prime.
Yeah, pretty much, particularly in teams as well. I think these guys just work well, right? Him and Schneider, Roxy, they just find a way. They just know how to play, whether that's knowledge-wise, whether it's the game, whether that's strategy. They just bounce off each other really well, and like in-depth knowledge. But I noticed something a little bit different this time, and I noticed. I think I dropped off. We initially watched this on a watch party, but I think by this point I dropped off. But I did watch it on the night, and I noticed it again upon the replay. Is Koi, like, I've kind of often complimented Koi about his his team talks, how he kind of negotiates in between rounds with obviously SHAZAM. This time he was being positive, but he wasn't being as involved in their decision making and bouncing off them. He was saying, "Oh, okay, you guys are playing really well. Let's spin the wheel." In effect, basically, and that really wasn't like him. I didn't notice that this match. He wasn't as bubbly and vibrant this match, and it kind of surprised me afterwards. He actually addressed it. He said, "I didn't enjoy this match." And obviously, after the whole round 5 thing, he said, "I didn't enjoy this match. I'm tired. I need a rest. This was stressful." And I noticed that throughout the match. If anyone goes back and watches the match, watch in between rounds just how Koi was just going through the motions. He wasn't as involved and as invested. That definitely stood out for me. I don't know if it would make a difference if he was 10% more energetic or not, but I just noticed throughout the match he wasn't as fired up as he normally is. So I noticed that from the second round onwards. So I just thought I'd mention that.
John, I mean, did I now watching back, like, didn't even think about that at all, but until he brings it up. But that's just not the Koi we know and love.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I had not noticed that, largely because I was noticing the thing that Colin was bringing up, which was that this was really a Mark Andreyko powerhouse performance. So that's definitely something to check out on the replay, which we can now do because the match is up right now. By the way, did we say that we were going to spoil this? You should have assumed that we were, because that's what we do on this show, is that we break it down. But now's as good a time as any, I guess, to go watch it if you haven't, because we've only discussed the first 2 rounds, so there's a hearty 3 rounds for you to check out still. But yeah, I definitely didn't notice that. And I mean, it makes sense that this would kind of be the breaking point, especially for someone like Koi, who was not getting a whole lot of play early in the season, but then got a lot of play later in the season. It makes sense that this was probably the moment where he was kind of like, oh boy, I need to take a sit down. especially because this was not his only match of the Spectacular as well, since he was also a part of the Smith, Zaflerd, and Flaus match. But yeah, I mean, I certainly something that did stick around after round 2, if not for Koi's Energy, was Jim Henson as a category, where another Jim Henson friggin' question popped up. Still no questions about Muppet Treasure Island, and I'm still sore about it, but it's fine. We saw an edge coming out once again, Colin, where a team was able to get a wee bit of an advantage.
Yeah, the league gets trimmed. The league gets extended. Well, it was 3, and then Odd Couple ties it, and then Odd Couple bets 1, and Shazam bets 3. They both get it right. That's 29-27. So now Shazam moves back into the lead here, and the Jim Henson questions. I like to think that a round 3 question is kind of like I don't even know what level of question it should be, because it just seems like they've been all over the place. And it's fair because everybody gets the same question, obviously. So it's not like, if it's a hard question, it's a hard question. If it's an easy question, it's an easy question. You could both kind of tell that everybody was like, oh, Dark Crystal. You could just tell. And it was just kind of one of those things, and you could tell the second Mark heard the question, he's like, he was like, he was mad that he didn't do more. And fortunately enough, they have other opportunities to come back in this, but round 3 definitely was a moment where I don't think Shazam maybe realized what they had, and then could have done a bit more later on. It's hard when, spoiler alert, this match comes down to the 5-pointer. Like, it's just hard when you think about that, 2 points here really doesn't make a big of a difference if it comes down to the 5-pointer. But you could just see that for Andraco and Snyder, it just added on to that round 1 feeling. Didn't continue that round 2 feeling. Stayed in that, like, oh, well, we could have done more. And it sucks when it's in your hands, right? Like, it's just, when you could have done it, it wasn't, it sucks. It's one of the only things that you actually take into, that's in your control during the game in terms of these championship matches, is the points. So, interesting to see that it doesn't end up affecting the end result. But round 4, the speed round, this was something. And this might be the reason why they don't want to do online matches with teams anymore. This is a tough watch. Like, this is just, it's rough to watch because so many things have to go correctly, and a lot of things cannot go wrong. Like, there's just too many variables in this in terms of internet to internet connection. You gotta hope and pray that Canada doesn't shut off access to the US if you're Brendan Meyer. Like, it's just a bunch of too much stuff, too much going on here. But John, it's just Shazam again putting themselves in position to just do the right thing. They don't get any misses, if I'm right.
You're not right. Or you're right in that nobody misses. But
right. They pass.
Yeah. Both of them passed on a question. So both of them only got 4 out of a possible 5 points. We were looking at a beatable Shazam here. But, I mean, if you want to talk about beatable, players that were looking real beatable and beat upon.
Lay it on us.
Self-beat upon. Here's what I'll say. Because I got legitimate gripes with Snyder in round 5, which we'll talk about. But in round 4, I'm actually going to give him a little bit of credit because, like you were saying, Colin, we had some snafus with the intranet. And not all of Snyder's performance is on him, I would say, as far as round 4 goes. Obviously, with Snyder, you give this guy an inch, he's going to take a mile. He loves to be the victim. He loves to be all very woe is me and get incredibly into his feelings. But there is something to be said for not being able to hear a question and then having your game completely thrown off, right? And that's what happened with Snyder. Is there's one question, I don't know which one specifically, but there's one that he apparently just did not hear.
I believe it was the first question.
It was,
right?
So
it was the first question.
From question
it was a
number
second
one.
about one of the characters in The Hobbit.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he's like, he literally can't hear. Like, how do you deal with that? That must have been the moment where Snyder. There must have been a talk after that where Christian was like, "This ain't it. Like, we cannot continue to do this."
Well, especially because the solution, as it were, was to kind of just give Snyder just another random question with another 4 seconds. Which, like, I don't know exactly how I feel about that yet. Like, I definitely dig the mindset of trying to keep it in the spirit of the speed round. And you could argue that, like, Snyder also not being able to handle that situation was more about his own personal mindset than the
maybe put some headphones on.
I mean, listen, we saw me in the pre-show for 30 minutes trying to figure out how to make headphones work properly, but I did it because that's what being a professional is supposed to mean. Some people don't know the meaning of the word, but Snyder absolutely struggling. Regardless of how you feel about him, he did major whoops inside of his pants for round 4. Meanwhile, Mark Andreyko, like I've been saying since our initial recap of the Spectacular, Andreyko was playing a game that deserved to win this match. And yes, Andreyko got 3, as opposed to either Brendan Meyer or William Bibiani, who got 4. But even as upset as Mark was with his own performance, again, like you were saying, Colin, not betting more for that Jim Henson question when it came to him so quick, Andreyko kept his head in the game. Andreyko was focused on the questions. Obviously, he had the advantage of being able to hear them all because he wore headphones. But Andreyko, as annoyed as he was at how things were going, he really stuck with it. He kept focused. He stayed listening. He stayed attuned to everything that was going on, both as far as the questions and as far as his time limit. And I just felt like Andreyko played a really solid round 4, all things considered, and he really kept Odd Couple's heads above water in the situation that Snyder landed him in. But, coming out of round 4, 37-31 for SHAZAM. And, like I was saying at the top of round 1, a 3-point lead coming out of round 1, that doesn't mean anything. A 6-point lead coming out of round 4, that's when numbers start to mean things. Bogz, what were your thoughts coming out of round 4, or even during? Any thoughts?
Sure. Yeah, very interesting. Very interesting. So, I'm going to admit I'm a bit of a Schneider shill. So I will kind of find a reason to back him over anything, pretty much. But SHAZAM in this round, of course, they're doing great, getting 4 out of 5 each. You kind of know that going in, that they will probably do well. With Schneider, that I have rewatched this a few times, and I can't see that his connection cuts out or anything. He just looks like completely normal. He asks the rest of the question, the round goes fine. It just seemed like a bit of an inner geekdom heavy question, and like which wanted a character name of one of the elves, and he was just like, I don't know, pass kind of thing. So, and then they've just kind of, he just tried to do his Schneider thing and get another question, which again he didn't know. So I will call him out a bit on that. I think it was a complete strategy thing, and I think that Schneider will lie, cheat, and steal to win. I'm not not literally cheat, but this is how the saying goes. But he'll do anything within his power to win, and I think this was one of them things. But I will say that as a part of the thing that I like is that he didn't guess any answers. He obviously he doesn't know, so he will pass in terms of no matter how he acts or how he behaves, he's still slightly being strategic in terms of passing, at least not because that it still gets the 6-point lead, but it could have been worse if he would have guessed some answers, frustratedly guessed, I don't know, because even they asked the release date question, he could have guessed the year or that kind of thing. So at least his head's still in the game. He's playing kind of dirty-ish, but his head's still in the game, which I do like. So yeah, I do definitely think that he was lying about his connection, to be honest. But I did like that he didn't guess any answers there, and he still kept Andreyko in it, in effect, basically. And yeah,
Some
you know.
Snyder slander. Oh my
Yes!
my stars.
Yes!
No.
Bogz, yes!
But I like it. I'm not saying I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Yeah, I like it. I like
Bogz!
it.
What kind of commentator are you? Yo, I like it when players lie.
In no way is it.
What do you mean? This dude has been like the biggest Chandru fan on the show.
No, Chandra's never lied. Chandra's never lied.
Yeah, he's never
Never
lied.
lied.
But Bogz is he's.
Chandra's been the guy to
he's
be
a
like, well,
greaser.
technically,
Are you a
if
Sosha
read-
or greaser, Bogz? Like, I feel like you would definitely bring the knife out. Like, if we were like, "Hey, let's fight," you'd be like, "Yeah," or like, like.
I'm not saying
the-
I would do that. I like to see when I find it entertaining.
The problem with Bogz is he's gonna do that cute little, just like, yeah, smile. I don't know. Oops. I guess I accidentally put a
Excuse
couple
me,
knives
you
in
didn't
you.
mind, right?
Oh, that's a bummer, isn't it?
Yeah, so I'm like,
broken.
my reaction is like, I'm shaking my head, but I'm like laughing. I'm like, how did you get away with this? Like, he always does this stuff. He's done it
Boy,
in
a
previous
triple
match, where
homicide, huh? What a real
his-
buggeroony.
His second round connection went the match before, and I think it was the team's final, or maybe maybe a match before that. But I'm sure it was the team's final. His second round, fourth round, second round question. He didn't hear the question. He got another one. So he's done it before. Like, it's complete act as far as I'm concerned. But do I find it thoroughly entertaining? Yes, I do.
Yeah, I'm now officially against this like format for round 4. It sucks. I've totally turned back to the speed round. I would rather have a buzzer and Josh Makuga standing there putting his hand one way or putting his hand the other way. You can't see because I'm confined in this box, but I did left and right. Like it just, there's so much that can go wrong, and this is just something that they have taken into consideration. It's why it's gonna be our last teams match for a little while.
Yeah.
Okay, the nitty gritty of this match, John.
We're getting into nits and grits. Oh,
Nits, grits, and I'm not talking about the beautiful grits that my girlfriend makes for me on the weekends that are delicious. We're talking about the nitty gritty of this match. 37-31. Let's go, John. Run me through it. Were those numbers sexy, though? I feel like the Odd Couple had pretty sexy numbers if, the way everything went.
I mean, maybe it's because I'm a writer who never did particularly well in any math class, especially not geometry. I almost flunked out of that
Wait, but
one.
we had to, what? That's the most
I'm not
writing you
finding-
have to do in math.
Listen, geometry was simply too much math. I'll tell you
Prove
that
it.
right now. Not
Prove
only did I have
it.
to do math, but then I had to draw shapes
Get it?
about
That was
my
funny.
math. Fuck off.
Do you get my prove it joke?
No, because I don't know geometry, Colin.
We had to
I
prove.
just made
It was
that very-
proofs, right? No? You had proofs in geometry. You had to prove that, like, why is a triangle a triangle?
I'm the wrong person to ask. You found
I
the
also
worst-
live in South Carolina, and we're 49 out of 50 in education in the states of the United States. So, take that for
boy.
what. Yeah, y'all been listening to this idiot for 8 months.
I
Good
can't
on
believe I
y'all.
let
Way to go.
Colin do my taxes. I might have to call somebody. Hold on.
Oh, we're great with that. You come on down here. Whatever you're
Yeah.
paying in rent, you could buy a house for out here. So we're real good with money. What does the dude say in The Dark Knight? I'm very good with calculations.
I mean, I guess I'll pull a Bogz and say I like it when people lie and cheat a little bit on the.
Oh!
Not true, IRS. Don't come for me, please. Round 5, we get a couple right answers off the bat. Andreyko gets his Black Swan 2-pointer. Snyder gets his Platoon 3-pointer. And then the Odd Couple gets their Hugo 5-pointer. So I don't know if you're paying attention, gang, but that means that they had to get 10 points on the board in order to keep the game going. I guess technically they only needed 6 to 7 to keep it going, but that meant 3 whole questions that they had to blaze their way through, and they got them. Was Jeff Snyder a baby throughout the entirety of that process? You'd best believe it. Taking out his phone, screaming at Roxy during the match. Not something I think is good, personally. Maybe that's just me. But I think probably players screeching at their managers like children and then taking out their phone so that way they can watch the Baby Shark video like children are not good people and should not be kept on teams/factions. But that's just me. Certainly can't argue with the number of points that were scored. You certainly can't argue that. Now, obviously, that put SHAZAM in a position where they could have easily just kept their lead going and won. That's not quite what we got, though, was it, Bogz?
No. Yeah. So, but I forgot to mention as well, by Jeff's antics in round 4, I felt like this was the moment where Jeff started to like take over the match, just in really subtle ways. Well,
Subtle?
yeah, I was about to say not subtle.
You sure about that?
Painfully obvious. Yeah, painfully obvious. So he's got another question in round 4, and then as you said, yeah. So obviously he's kind of, for me, he's realized like, okay, so we're down 6 here. If we get all 3, then they need to hit the 5, basically. Well, presuming one of them miss. So let me basically try some antics, because I've made notes here. Like, he's coughing out loud during Brendan's questions.
It's
out loud,
unbelievable.
like, really loud.
It is. But if he was in the studio, this is the shit that he would have been doing. It's just hyper polarized because he can only hear you if you're talking into these headphones. You know, if you're talking to the mic through the headphones, it dominates. It's something we talked about all. Yeah, exactly. It's something we talked about all season.
He throws something, like, so you hear it like being, landed. You see him throwing something. He's got his hood up, he's like this. So he's obviously, shouts at Roxy, whatever.
I'm here for it. I'm not gonna lie. I'm here for it. I'm overly here for it because I've checked out. I've done all I can do in this match. Statistically speaking, there is no way for the odd couple to answer another question in this match. If I was Jeff, after my performance in round 4, I would have definitely been in the same shitter as well. Because besides Platoon, he sure as shit wasn't pulling Hugo. He sure as shit, he would have gotten Black Swan. But, he knows how lucky he is to have Mark. He's well aware. He is not, God, I just stand by it. I'm cool with the getting the phone out thing. The getting the phone thing out is something I would have done, to be completely honest. I'm a petty little fool. I'm a petty fool. I'm done. He's done at that point. It's either that or he's gonna sit there and keep rambling into the mic. He has to check himself out. I think he uses it as get me out of here. Let me just kind of do something else because this sucks. And he didn't want to. He knew he was going to lose. That dude that picked the phone up thought he was going to lose the match.
Sure.
That guy had no intention of winning.
My counterpoint is, too bad. You're an adult who agreed to be part of a show where you don't take out your phone during the show. You don't get to
But it's
decide.
after the show. But it's
no,
after
it's
the
not.
match
The show is still very much happening.
But he's done.
No, that doesn't matter. Oh, that doesn't matter. If I decide to stop talking during this show and I just let you and Bogz continue to talk, does that mean the show has ended because I've stopped talking? No, I'm not that important. The show is still going on regardless of whether or not I've decided I want it to be all about me, which I know I'm making it right now, and I am sorry. And I.
Well, what if he's making I guess the counter argument is we don't know what he. I mean, we kind of know what he was doing. But he could have been messaging Roxy sorry for yelling at you.
It doesn't matter what he was doing. If he was sorry about yelling at Roxy, a good thing to do is to not yell at Roxy in the first place. And that's one of those things where it's I don't have... again, looking at Snyder's behavior throughout this match, there is no world in which I believe he was being a respectful adult during that moment. There's no world in which I'm imagining him
sports. That happens.
Yeah, once again, in sports, you don't get to decide, I'm just gonna sit on the phone, in the middle of the field, and just start playing fucking Angry Birds during a match because I'm mad that the team isn't doing well. No, you keep being a part of the match because that is your one job. This was just something where it's obviously he was done answering questions. There's nothing else he could do as far as gameplay, but that doesn't change the fact that you're still an adult man during the middle of a broadcast where the expectations of what you're supposed to be doing when you're done with the questions is so low. It's so low. It's so easy to just not be a fucking baby. Christian has offered these players so many opportunities for them to simply be adults, as they all are. And it would be so easy for Jeff Snyder to be okay, I'm not getting any younger. I am still an adult. It'd be very easy for me to continue my conduct as and what's that? I've already started throwing my poop against the wall. Well, shoot, I guess I'm baby now.
Yeah, there's something really funny for me about he's in his childhood bedroom throwing his phone about and making noises and shouting and the polar opposite of it is SHAZAM being so honorable and respectful and like cheering like well done guys, like like supporting that even when they stole the question in round 2, like well done, that's a great pull, like
Oh my gosh.
and then he's like with his hood up just there like making noises and just acting like a complete child. You're 100% correct.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's Chance described it a few, I think I can't remember if it was the first or second time, but he mentioned this is the Weasley type behavior, and I agree. It is Weasley, but I find it fun. I find it fun, and I've seen him do this literally dozens of times before throughout his matches. Almost never gets called out on it. No one pushes him or challenges him with it on a stream, or maybe they do. Maybe it gets cuts out. Who knows? But I've never personally seen anyone, or off the top of my head anyway, anyone really challenge him about it or question him about it, or pull him up on it during a match, that kind of thing, which I think I'd like to see maybe, because he gets away with a lot. But I'm thoroughly entertained by it, I'm not gonna lie. And then doing all this and then for you to cry afterwards, like you being on your phone and then just put your phone down and start crying because you win, like for me it's hilarious. Yeah, it's like wrestling, it's like WWE behavior almost. So I love it. I'll be honest.
I mean, that's an interesting
I acknowledge
point, though.
everything that you're saying, John. You're not wrong at all. But I just enjoy it as a viewer, as an entertainment thing, because it's like theater almost, like how he's behaving. So, I quite like it.
I mean, I guess I can only speak so much against you because I just watched the entire season of MTV's The Challenge. That's
okay, yeah, all right.
People showing the entirety of their asses. So I guess I'll say that. Listen, I'm not an unbiased reporter. One thing I will say, Bogz, because this is a point you brought up earlier with Koi, I think you're right that other people should start calling out Snyder on his bullshit a little bit more. And that would have been a great moment where a more energetic Koi probably could have chimed in and done something.
It's just not the team, right? It's just not the group of people that would do it. I think you would need maybe like playing Winston and final exam, pulling some stuff. But even then, like I feel like I feel like Jeff just did it. I feel like it was more strategic, and I know that's not what I know you're like. I am with you on how he acted and how he came across. I am 100% with you that is how it happened. But to a point, he's doing it because he's trying to mess with these guys. He knows they can see them. He knows that they can see, like that is a very that's strategic as hell. That's something I've done in game playing. Like if you giving off the impression that you have mentally checked out gives your opponent a false sense of security that, as we see in this round 3, comes back to bite SHAZAM in the butt. It seems to me like they're expecting this to be done in, what do they need? They need 2 questions. They could have been done by the 5. They didn't even need to answer their 5. They only needed to answer their 2 and their 3. And they couldn't. So something about what I'm not going to say that Snyder is the reason why they missed the questions, but he definitely set the tone to be much different than what he created an atmosphere with his, and it clearly paid off. Because it just seems like it's something he was looking to do.
I am definitely gonna push back on you there a little bit. I think giving him strategic credit for acting like a petulant child is far too much credit for Snyder.
But that's like saying he's never done it before.
No, it's not. It's me saying it's never been strategic. He's always just been a childish asshole. But, and this is where I am gonna agree with you, Colin. This is a situation where, regardless of whether or not Snyder meant it, he didn't. SHAZAM definitely, we're starting to feel like, oh, okay, well, we've just been the cheery guys. We've had to deal with BS from opponents before. Like, they've had to do it with the Odd Couple and also outside of the Odd Couple. They've oftentimes been the kind of just a goofy, hey, we're just happy to be here. We know you're being mean to us. We don't really care. Like, I think they had to deal with it with corruption a little bit as well. But then, the Odd Couple gets some or no, not the Odd Couple. SHAZAM gets some championship round level questions. By which I mean, I, of course, did not get them. I think very few competitors would get them. But they are fair game for a match of champions. Like, these are the kinds of deep cuts that are fitting for these kinds of matches. Brendan Meyer missed his American Hustle 2-pointer. That's
a 5-pointer. That is a 5-pointer. And I'm going to push back on the question writers because and I love PJ. PJ is the bomb. I've talked to PJ a good bit online. He's a great, great person. But for PJ's reasoning on why that was a 2-point question was because of a meme. He said that the microwave was a meme. I ain't ever seen it. And if that's your reasoning for thinking a question is a 2-point question because of a meme online, that's where I was kind of like, I felt really bad for Brendan Meyer, because I feel like if you put any other question, it was a crime movie too, which when I think of crime movies, American Hustle does not immediately pop in my head. Of course, it's a crime movie and it qualifies. But that was to me, that was the most out of left field 2-point question. And they just got Black Swan. Come on. That was just, it was so polar in terms of.
Well, and that's the thing, is because definitely a toughie 2-pointer. But then it could have all been A-okay if they just hit their 5. But then we got hit with the mother of 5-pointer questions. The nickname of not Rose Byrne's, Emily Blunt's character.
Both extremely lovely. Way to pair two people. Oh, man.
They're both British.
Oh, my God. Just amazing people.
Bogz, can you tell them apart?
Of course.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Well,
one's Mary Poppins.
Ah, yes, Rose Byrne. That was a tough 5-pointer. And it gets back to one of those things where I'm like, on the one hand, I've argued that, Snyder's performance did not deserve to win the Odd Couple, the belts. But I've also said that Andrejko's performance was solid and is the thing that kept them above water. And they did deserve to be in this kind of real neck-and-neck situation in round 5. It is just crazy to think about how much better SHAZAM was doing, and then to just get hit with a freight train friggin' Snowpiercer of a 5-pointer. Oof. I mean, I think I speak for all of us when I say, no way we getting that. That one's just going to go right over the head. But it meant that the Odd Couple, for the second time this year, won those ding-donged teams' belts. And they're going to be defending them for a hot second, because we don't know when the next team's match is going to happen. Which means I know there are people out there who count the number of years that a player is able to defend their belts, obviously with Alex Damon being a prime example of a man who seems like he was just kind of born with the belt. But it means that the Odd Couple
was born in the darkness.
Gonna have a pretty secured spot in the halls of Schmoedown history, if only from a numerical standpoint. I guess I'll pop it over to you first, Colin. Do you think that the Odd Couple kind of deserves the legacy that they're going to have? Because obviously I think a lot of this year has been about Snyder's legacy and how much people have counted it. And we all know my opinion on it, so we don't even need to talk about what I think. But as someone who's been watching this game, I think maybe the longest of the three of us, I think it's between you and Bogz, though, having seen many different incarnations, my goodness, of Andrejko and Snyder, how do you feel about where these two players are at now?
You rarely see, and just shoot this out to all sports, you rarely see the champion move team, like a true GOAT, a true, pillar, reinvent himself with someone else on another team. Rarely does it play out. Yeah, Brett Favre left the Green Bay Packers and went to the Vikings. Almost got to a Super Bowl, but didn't quite get to the Super Bowl. And he got it. It's hard, especially when you're watching a game like this, and it's so much on you. It's like tennis. Or it's doubles in tennis. It's all up here. I think it shows a lot about Snyder. Like, there are many times that this game swayed away in terms of appealing to Jeff Snyder. There were many times where he checked out, and not just this game in particular. I mean, the Schmoedown in general. But as of late, the emphasis on character, the emphasis on just being entertaining has swung back to that Patriots level of play. And you could tell for a minute when the Odd Couple first got together that it looked good on paper, but it still seemed like something was missing. I think Snyder needed to lose before he could win. And I think losing that belt really shook him and shook Mark up another way. But for me, Snyder he's on the Rushmore for me, because I watched I've watched it all. I saw the Patriots box office breakdown, the whole thing, them coming in and inventing them, like truly creating the first. You can give Roka was a heel, but you felt emotionally attached to his rise and how he progressed through the game. I hated the Patriots. I hated them because they came in and beat everyone. Every single time you thought somebody had a chance, the Patriots beat them every time. It was just so in line with the football team. It was like every single time somebody lines up and you think they have a chance to beat them, they don't. The Patriots just come through and stomp them. And it felt like that for 2-3 years. And it took the Shire Wolves, a truly a force, a planetary force, just moving in on them. Like, it was impossible for them not to succeed, the Patriots. I've just always kind of been, hoping that one day we might see the Patriots, but now we're never going to see them again, because the Odd Couple have found a way to make it work. And it's because Jeff Snyder and Mark play well together. That's what happens. This is a team game where Mark played his ass off, and Jeff had a bad day on more fronts than one. He wasn't solid in round 4. He really kind of wasn't there. He definitely didn't contribute. Not that he didn't contribute, but round 3 was definitely Andreyko knows this answer. But for me, Snyder he's been through every facet of this game. Literally every single facet of the game. He's been here from the beginning. And he's seen it, and he's taken the licks, and he's taken the criticism. And what I really, really respect about him is how much he just doesn't give a flying. He does not care. The dude doesn't care. John, he doesn't care if I love him. He doesn't care if you hate him.
He certainly doesn't care if I hate him.
Yeah,
he definitely on that we can agree.
Right, he just doesn't care. And that's something that can be commended, I think, is in terms of a player, being able to totally shut out the noise. But I think that goes back to where I relate it to tennis, to where it's all up here. And if you mess I used to play tennis in high school. I would look at a ball that I hit. I knew there would be 3 balls in play, and I wouldn't hit a ball on a first serve because I didn't like the way I hit it on the last time it was in play. You could psych yourself up into anything, and he's so quick to psych himself out. And there's so much there that can make him so much better. And imagine how great he already is now, and how much better he can be if he applied that next level bit of, maybe not falling out of the game and falling out of how it goes. But I've been talking too much. Bogz, where this is, to me, is just Snyder having to do what he has to do to get it done this time.
Well, and I would also ask you this, Bogz, because I definitely know you are a Snyder shill, as you have self-proclaimed. So, kind of bouncing off what Colin was just asking there, what do you think we'll see from Snyder next year? Do you think we're going to see? Because I think probably as the team's champions, they're going to be a protected team, regardless of who winds up picking them up. But what do you think we're going to see? Because obviously, the Odd Couple went into that little mini teams tournament kind of going like, oh, if we don't do too well, then we'll probably just break up. Now that they are, again, playing some of the best matches that they've ever played this season, what do you think comes next for Snyder and Andreyko separately and together?
Well, since we're in the Schneider Renaissance, I think he should run for office somewhere.
Oh,
You
no.
know,
Don't
that
you
kind
wish
of
that
thing.
on us. Just
Yeah,
because you aren't in this country and won't have to deal with it doesn't mean you should wish that on us.
can you imagine? Yeah.
Heavy
Yeah.
House of Commons vibes from him. Lots of.
He's fit right in. He's fit right in. So yeah, I mean, especially from where they've came, they took a heavy loss against Who's the Boss this year, and obviously Schneider lost against Irwin earlier on. So yeah, it's like he also has come back, and yeah, to be, the first 3-time champion, to that's definitely cemented his legacy. For me, he's my player of the year, overall Schmoedown player of the year. Like you were saying earlier, Colin, from the personality, the heel work, the entertainment value, the gameplay, winning titles, winning a tournament, getting into another tournament final. And yeah, so I think what you said earlier, John, in terms of where you would rank him or who's the boss as an all-time team, I don't know. I'd probably, from let's say the all-time top 10, no pun intended, teams, I'd say maybe in the middle somewhere, maybe middle to lower half. He hasn't, in terms of who's the boss, they haven't defended. They have beaten the Shy Wolves for the title and SHAZAM, of course. Their record's like 10-4 now, I believe. So they are strong. They're definitely one of the better teams for me all time. But where I'd put them, I don't know. Probably in the middle somewhere. But the way that they're playing, the way they ended the season, I think they can start cementing their legacy more, even further. But it's going to be tough because the potential of the teams that they could play this year is pretty lethal. But when the next team's match will be, who knows? So we're gonna have to put teams on hold, on freeze for a bit. But yeah, I don't know where they can next go. But Schneider is he's quickly becoming one of my favorite players.
Nice, yeah. Yeah, I mean, definitely as far as that top 10 teams of all time goes, no one's ever going to be able to unseat number 1 Wildberries. It simply won't happen.
Woo!
It's just never going to happen. And then bouncing it over to you, Colin, on the other side of the ledger, we have SHAZAM. Bibiani and Meyer, a team that really kind of blew up in 2019, I guess it would have been now. Gosh, time is weird. What do you think we're going to be seeing from them? Because I could imagine Koi definitely wanting to keep these two in his roster. Do we think that this is a loss where they go, all right, maybe it's time for us to split up and see what we can do to better ourselves? Do you think that it's going to be the two of them trying to sharpen each other's irons in order to have a better 2021? What do you think is next for the team of SHAZAM?
I think you can compare the two teams here. It's, to me, Snyder and Bibbs are to Mark and Brendan, where there's things that obviously Brendan's going to know that Bibbs doesn't. And I feel like that's the key to both of these teams, is playing off the other. And I think that SHAZAM is one of the few teams that has the potential to get better than they already are, because Brendan just has gaps. Dude hasn't had enough time hasn't had, well, we all had a lot of time, but he hasn't had the same amount of time on this earth to watch movies as some of the other competitors. And so he has potential to fill in those gaps, and for me to know that he wants to fill in those gaps. And it's interesting to think that these two wouldn't be together next season, but it's a possibility. Coy has to look at, there's times where this worked, and this team looks unbeatable. But the times where they get beat, it's apparent. It's noticeable gaps for both of them. So there's a reason to think they might not stick together. But I'm sticking on the side of SHAZAM will be back for the Quirky Mercs next season. I'm thinking that it's going to be Kevin Smith retained and Brendan and Bibbs. So got the 2 Bs and Kevin Smith piling it on there for the Quirky Mercs. It's just going to be really hard to find that level of production somewhere else. I wouldn't think that that you can find a better partner for Bibbs to coexist with.
Absolutely. Bouncing it over to you, Bogz. I would say whatever kind of thoughts you have on that lingering question of SHAZAM. But then also, looking at my notes, the only other thing I have written down is that this match meant that the Rockstars went up to number 4. Or no, they went up 4 points, which meant that they were tied in the faction standings at the number 3 slot, as Colin was pointing out, tied with the Finstock Exchange. So obviously the Rockstars made up a hefty deficit to tie with the team that at the beginning of the season was looking like the number 1. So if you are Roxy, the manager of the now named Stars, if it was up to you, Bogz, what one thing would you say might be what could hypothetically tip the Stars over into being the number 1 faction come this time next year?
So to answer your SHAZAM question first, I definitely think they should stick together moving forward because obviously they're 8-2, good record. You've got good wins. Statistically, I don't know the numbers. I don't have them in my hand, but as far as I'm aware, these two are of like the top performing players, just generally, numbers wise, percentages wise. So yeah, like there's no reason to split these guys up. They lost on their 5-point, really what it comes down to. So there's nothing wrong with that. There's no shame in that. It happens. They played. In effect, they were the better team or match. They just didn't know the 5. Basically, that's what cost them in the end.
And the two, which were 2 5s. I just sat here and argued for it. So yeah, it was 2 5s.
So yeah, I definitely think they should sit together. Yeah, they're really good together. And yeah, in terms of the all-time top 10 teams, I'd probably put them in the lower end of that. So yeah, they've got things to prove to climb up that list. So yeah, definitely they're one of the strongest teams in the game. So I don't see why they should. If they want a losing streak, or if they didn't play well, or if they got TKO'd, then fine, maybe consider it. But no, you played great. So you just lost out and you didn't know one question. So no reason to stop there. In terms of the Stars, so I mean, now you've got your base now. In terms of you've got singles players, elite singles players, you've got elite teams players, you've got elite Star Wars players now, so they're already going to be strong from the start of next year. It's obviously they need to strengthen inner geekdom in particular, and just your overall draft picking. See Winston for that, or see particularly Shannon for that, and how to draft. Maybe having people like Paula Yama, who is connected to maybe the fan leagues, that kind of thing, or like having Chance there connected to the fan leagues again, knowing how to draft. Maybe if Roxy had someone like that, or maybe recruited someone like that, or was talking to someone like that, maybe that can help them draft a bit better, that kind of thing. But even if they do that, then that means that she wouldn't draft Jericho, so that's a bit up in the air as well. She wouldn't keep Jericho, then he'd be in the draft, of course. So that'd be a bit awkward. But for her to climb up the ladder further, to win the championship, I think she's going to be one of the favorites already. But it's all about the draft. It's all about who she picks, who she teams up with. Inner geekdom is a must. You can't just rely on Alex. We know he's not gonna, he's not the creme de la creme of Inner geekdom is too strong at the minute as well. So she needs a pure Inner geekdom player who can threaten the champ. So who's that going to be? I think that's really what it comes down to, that kind of thing. Yeah. So interesting picks for the Stars.
Yeah, I mean, if Roxy sticks to her guns, from what I saw over on the Schmoedown recap show with Jen and Brad, and sticks to this claim that she might be trying to spirit away Marisol
Mhm.
from corruption. Ooh, that could be spicy. But you are definitely right that Winston is a prime example of someone who wasn't just picking those cream de la creme. Ugh, John, speak better, just a little bit, you moron. Uh, but yeah, definitely picking people that are going to be more actively in the rotation of those kind of lower card matches and are still getting wins for the squad. Like I think that's something that a lot
And
of
so
managers.
one last thing.
Oh,
Al-
sure.
yeah, just because that you mentioned it, Alex needs to have more matches as well. This, the champ having one match a year just ain't good enough. Even Smets, it happened to Smets as well. Only having one match is not fair on them. Obviously, it's not their fault. It's no one's fault. It's just generally moving forward into the new season. The champ, needs to be playing 3-4 times a year. So sorry.
Well, and I think again, like that kind of cuts to the fact that Roxy just kind of had like the odd couple, had Alex Damon. But then it was like, oh, Star Wars tournament comes up. I don't know. Does anyone on my faction know anything about Star Wars? Quevedo? Sure. Go for it, bud. It's like, poor Quevedo is getting thrown to the friggin' wolves there. So I think definitely just kind of going like, okay, no, who actually plays in these divisions? Who actually knows what's up? Who's able to get some wins on the board? Chris Jericho, we love him. He is 0-2. We don't love that. So it'll be kind of interesting to see what Roxy's able to put together. Colin, wrapping it all up. Buddy, what are you hoping to see from the Stars? What are you hoping to see from the Quirky Mercs? What do you think is going to be the future of the game for these two factions?
I'm interested to see it live, to see them in person against one another in not a studio setting. I need to see these two in a rematch in a live setting, because it's just something that I think the Odd Couple would have the advantage, because Snyder's giving two shits less of what he looks like. I mean, the man wore a Kevin White Chicago Bears jersey, historically the worst offensive pick for the Chicago Bears outside like ever in a draft. Like, this guy maybe played like 6 games total, and he found the jersey, and it was this dude does not care what he does. And I need to see that against SHAZAM, because if SHAZAM can fend that off in a live environment, I think it just adds more fuel to the fire. But I think seeing Snyder in a live setting would just probably be a bit too much for SHAZAM. But I'm excited to see if we can at some point get everybody vaccinated. We gotta see these two play again. We gotta see these two teams go at it again. This is not the end. I don't think these teams are breaking up. These are my 2 of my 3 solids. You gotta keep them together, because both of these teams can get better. I think, which is weird to think about, that these two teams can get better, but they're in a position where they can. We were kind of stuck before, like the Schmoes at the beginning. Like, Christian and Mark were kind of static from the beginning of their play to the end, which took them to 2 championship performances. But you have to look at, like, they weren't quite built to continue on. Neither of them. They were both a bit too busy, in terms of their outside life. But these players are so committed now that it's impossible that the play is not going to elevate. That's something we've talked about all year on this show, is the collision that is going to occur when the play that we saw from this season meets the who the F knows what's going to happen in a studio match, and they're all going to collide, because it's just going to raise the level of entertainment, because the trivia has been raised this year. The level of trivia. We are at like Ken Jennings level of movie trivia with some of these folks, where they just know too much. They just know everything. And it takes you either brain farting or just truly not knowing something to miss it. And these two teams are primed to be the top teams again next season. I think, unfortunately, Deception would have been a great foil to some of these teams, because they also have a high ceiling, but I know they're not going to retain, because Marisol, unless she gets picked first, you would have to 7 teams would not have to pick her in the first round to get to corruption. That's a lot to ask. So I feel like that team probably had the biggest chance to maybe put a little wrinkle in this, because we know Adam Collins and Jeff Snyder already know what's up. So like they've been acquainted before, and to add Marisol in that would just be a nice little cherry on top. But I'm excited to see these 2 teams next year. No way they're going away.
Absolutely. And if there's one thing all 3 of us, I think, can agree on, regardless of our feelings on individual players, on teams as a whole, on Hall of Fame records, there's one thing we can agree on: please get vaccinated. Simply get vaccinated. Remember how last year we were all making fun of the anti-vaxxers? Remember how that was a fun thing? We weren't wrong. That's the thing. We weren't wrong to be making fun of them. Don't become one of them now. That's silly. That's how they win. But I certainly know I'm winning, because I've gotten to spend a whole hour, 10 minutes with 2 very lovely boys. Thank you so much, my boys. My dear sweet boys, for being willing to talk about this match with me. Bogz, when you're not talking about things over here, where could the people see you talking about other things?
Catch me on the Pop Culture Universe, doing the we have the High Ground show with my boy over there, Colin. We also do Pop Talks. Yes, this week we're going to be breaking down Cobra Kai. We can't wait for it to drop. Yes, so mainly just there, subscribe, like, comment, all that good stuff. That's the Pop Culture Universe on YouTube. Obviously catch us here as well at the Ultimate Schmoedown show. But yeah, it's been a pleasure. And yeah, catch us next week.
That's right. And the man slowly getting buried by action figures. Colin, where can the people find you?
You can find me at _C Morris on all the social media platforms. I'm 1 follower away from 600 on Instagram. So if one person wants to follow me on Instagram, that'd be kind of lit. But yeah, I'm basically wherever Bogz is on the internet, I'm on the internet.
We have a guest next week as well. Sorry, didn't mention.
Oh, do we have a guest next week? Our first interview with a prospective draftee in the upcoming Schmoedown draft, Mr. Rick the Rager Radis, is going to be coming on the Ultimate Schmoedown show next week, folks. Going to be gracing us with his absolutely mesmerizing presence. I've had the privilege of being in a chat with this man on StreamYards, and he is a treat. And I cannot wait to get a little bit of sugar spice and everything nice. All we're missing is a little chemical X, and I think the Rager is going to bring that, and it's going to be too much fun. John, how was your New Year's Eve stream last night?
Oh boy, it was very good. I don't want to say too much because people can, of course, watch.
No, please, John, no, tell us.
No, tell me everything that happened during it.
All
I need an
right,
itemized list.
I mean, right off the bat, Danny DeVito showed up at minute 5, which is great because I didn't send him the link, so I still don't know exactly how he got on there. He kind of started saying all this stuff about how, like, he was my dad, and I was like, I'm not short enough, and he was like, well, you're bald enough, and I was like, well, you got me over a barrel there, Mr. Penguin. So it was kind of just a lot of, like, family reconciliation there. But then Rowan Atkinson shows up, and then he's like, no, I'm your dad. And I was like, well, now this is a whole hootenanny. This is a whole hoot and a half. Suddenly I have 3 dads. Where's my actual dad? And then I try to get him up on the phone, and he's like, John, I'm in a bunker. I'm like, who put you in a bunker? He's like, I don't know, a man. And I said, well, I'm on the phone with 2 mans. And then we played Jackbox, which you can watch me having definitely already done at twitch.tv/JohnBarr. I think that's probably what I'm going to do. It's just a whole heck of Jackbox games that night. And if you want to know exactly when that's going to happen, well, you could follow me at JohnBarrTweets on Twitter and Instagram. I'm probably going to talk about it there.
I'm truly amazed that every single time I look at your Instagram account, it is JohnBarrTweets. So every single time you put a caption in your Instagram, it most of the time is like I'm reading as a sentence, where it's like, John Barr tweets, I had a lovely trip to the bathroom, or whatever. Like, it all just reads as this nice.
My trips to the bathroom are not lovely. Let me.
It just always reads as this nice, beautiful comedic sentence. So you, sir, hats off. You are a true. I would follow you even if I didn't know you. Well, we hope that you follow this show. Hope that you like this video. Please subscribe to the channel. We are still packing the house, and we are moving before the new season It's going to be fun. Got a lot of new stuff coming your way. But folks, that'll do it for this episode of the Ultimate Schmoedown Show. Colin, John, and Bogz. I tried to reach my hand all the way through. I didn't forget your name. I just kept trying to reach, and I assumed that it would pop out the other end, but it didn't. We'll see you next week, where we break down the Inner Geekdom Championship of the World, Ultimate Schmoedown Show Civil War, between our two favorite guests and our most had guests on the show. The two-time visitors go off against each other. It's going to be fun. And we'll see the Rager, Rick Radis, here as well. So, folks, we'll see you next time. Thanks for stopping by. Bye.
Oh, dude, I've got such a good steak I'm going to cook up. Like, as soon as we're done here, I got a steak. I got some Brussels
I hope it
sprouts.
bleeds. I hope you still talk to it.